Ukraine. Ukraine is a country in Eastern Europe. It is the second largest European country after Russia, which it borders to the east and northeast. Ukraine covers approximately 6 lakh square kilometers, that means 2,30,000 square meters, and had a pre-war population of around 41 million people. It is also bordered by Belarus to the north, by Poland, Slovakia and Hungary to the west, and by Romania and Moldova to the southwest. With a coastline along the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov to the south and southeast. Kyiv is the nation's capital and largest city. The country's national language is Ukrainian, although the majority of the population is also fluent in Russian. During the Middle Age, the area was key center of East Slavic culture under the state of Kievan Rus, which emerged in the 9th century and was destroyed by Mongol invasion in the 13th century. After the Mongol invasion, the Kingdom of Ruthenia became the successor of Kievan Rus on the side of modern Ukraine, which was later absorbed by the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the Kingdom of Poland. The Grand Duchy of Lithuania became the de facto successor of the traditions of Kievan Rus. Ruthenian lands within the Grand Duchy of Lithuania enjoyed wide autonomy. Over the next 600 years, the area was contested, divided and ruled by a variety of external powers, including the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the Austrian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Tsardom of Russia. The Cossack Hetmanate emerged in central Ukraine in the 17th century, but was partitioned between Russia and Poland, ultimately absorbed by a Russian Empire. After the Russian Revolution, a Ukrainian national movement re-emerged and formed the Ukrainian People's Republic in 1917. This short-lived state was forcibly constituted by the Bolsheviks into the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, which became a founding member of the Soviet Union in 1920. In the 1930s, millions of Ukrainians were killed by a Holodomor, a man-made famine of the Stalinist era. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Ukraine regained independence and declared itself neutral, forming a limited military partnership with the post-Soviet Commonwealth of Independent States, while also joining the Partnership for Peace with NATO in 1994. In 2013, a series of mass demonstrations known as the Euromaidan erupted across Ukraine, eventually escalating into the Revolution of Dignity in 2014, which led to the establishment of a new government and pro-Russian unrest. During this period, unmarked Russian troops invaded the Crimean Peninsula, which was later annexed by Russia, and pro-Russia unrest in Ukraine's Donbas culminated in Russia-backed separatist seizing territory throughout the region, sparking the war in Donbas. This series of events marked the beginning of the ongoing Russo-Ukrainian War, and in a major escalation of the conflict in February 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Since the outbreak of war with Russia in 2014, Ukraine has continued to seek closer economic, political, and military ties with the Western world, including with the United States, European Union, and NATO. Ukraine is a unitary republic under a semi-presidential system and a developing country, ranking 74th on the Human Development Index. Despite having a free market economy, Ukraine remains among the poorest countries in Europe by nominal GDP per capita, especially in the east due to war. However, due to its extensive fertile land, pre-war Ukraine was one of the largest grain exporters in the world. It is a founding member of the United Nations as well as member of the Council of Europe, the World Trade Organization, the OSCE, and is currently in the process of joining the European Union. Simplified depiction of the biomes lying north of the Black Sea. The bright green belt girdling the Black Sea's southern coast, extending westward, denotes a region of subtropics. Ukraine is the second largest European country after Russia, lying between latitudes 44 degree and 53 degree north and longitudes 22 degree and 41 degree east. It is mostly in the East European plain. Ukraine covers an area of 6,03,628 square kilometers. That means 2,33,062 square meters, with a coastline of 2,782 kilometers, means 1,729 miles. The landscape of Ukraine consists mostly of fertile plains or steppes and plateaus, crossed by rivers such as the Dnieper, Seversky Donets, Dniester, and the southern Berg as they flow south into the Black Sea and the smaller Sea of Azov. To the southwest, the delta of the Danube forms the border with Romania. Ukraine's various regions have diverse geographic features ranging from the highlands to the lowlands. The country's only mountains are the Carpathian Mountains in the west, of which the highest in Hoverla at 2061 meters, means 6,762 feet, and the Crimean Mountains in the extreme south along the coast. Ukraine also has a number of highland regions such as the Volyn-Podillia Upland in the west and the Near-Dnipro Upland on the right bank of Dnieper. To the east, there are the southwestern spurs of the central Russian upland over which runs the border with the Russian Federation. Near the Sea of Azov can be found the Donets Ridge and the Near Azov Upland. The snow melt from the mountains feeds the rivers and their waterfalls. Significant natural resources in Ukraine include lithium, natural gas, kaolin, timber, and an abundance of arable land. Ukraine has many environmental issues. Some regions lack adequate supplies of potable water. Air and water pollution affects the country, as well as deforestation and radiation contamination in the northeast stemming from the 1986 accident and the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant. Ukraine has a mostly temperate climate, except for the southern coast of Crimea, which has a subtropical climate. The climate is influenced by moderately warm, humid air from the Atlantic Ocean. Average annual temperature range from 5.5 to 7 degrees Celsius. That means 41.9 to 44.6 Fahrenheit in the north, to 11 to 13 degrees Celsius, means 51.8 to 55.4 Fahrenheit in the south. Precipitation is highest in the west and north and the lowest in the east and southeast. Western Ukraine, particularly in the Carpathian Mountains, receives around 120 centimeters, means 47.2 inches of precipitation annually, while Crimea and the coastal area of the Black Sea receive around 40 centimeters, means 15.7 inch. Water availability from the major river basins is expected to decrease due to climate change, especially in summer. This poses risk to the agriculture sector. The negative impacts of climate change on agriculture are mostly felt in the south of the country, which has a steppe climate. In the north, some crops may be able to benefit from a longer growing season. The World Bank has stated that Ukraine is highly vulnerable to climate change. Ukraine contains 6 terrestrial ecoregions: Central European mixed forest, Crimean Submediterranean forest complex, East European forest steppe, Pannonian mixed forest, Carpathian Mountains conifer forest, and Pontic steppe. There is somewhat more coniferous than deciduous forest. The most densely forested area is Polysia in the northwest, with pine, oak, and birch. There are 45,000 species of animal, with approximately 385 endangered species listed in the Red Data Book of Ukraine. Internationally important wetland cover over 7 lakh square kilometer, means 2,700 square meter, with the Danube Delta being important for conservation. In 2021, agriculture was the biggest sector of economy and Ukraine was the world's largest wheat exporter. However, Ukraine remains among the poorest countries in Europe and corruption remains a widespread issue. The country was rated 122nd out of 180 in the Corruption Perceptions Index for 2021, the second lowest result in Europe after Russia. In 2021, Ukraine's GDP per capita by purchasing power parity was just over $14,000. Despite supplying emergency financial support, the IMF expected the economy to shrink considerably in 2022 due to Russia's invasion. In 2021, the average salary in Ukraine reached its highest level at almost 14,300 Ukrainian, means $525 per month. About 1% of Ukrainians lived below the national poverty line in 2019. Unemployment in Ukraine was 4.5% in 2019. In 2019, 5 to 15% of the Ukrainian population were categorized as middle class. In 2020, Ukraine's government debt was roughly 50% of its national GDP. In 2021, mineral commodities and light industry were important sectors. Ukraine produced nearly all types of transportation vehicles and spacecraft. The European Union is the country's main trade partner, and remittances from Ukrainians working abroad are important. Before the Russo-Ukrainian War, the number of tourists visiting Ukraine was 8th in Europe, according to the World Tourism Organization ranking. Ukraine has numerous tourist attractions, mountain ranges suitable for skiing, hiking, and fishing. The Black Sea coastline has the popular summer destination. Nature reserves of different ecosystems, churches, castles, ruins, and other architectural and park landmarks various outdoor activity points. Kyiv, Lviv, Odesa, and Kamyanets-Podilskyi were Ukraine's principal tourist center, each offering many historical landmarks as well as formidable hospitality infrastructure. Tourism used to be the mainstay of Crimea's economy, but there was a major fall in visitors' numbers following the Russian annexation in 2014. The 7 wonders of Ukraine and 7 natural wonders of Ukraine are the selection of the most important landmarks of Ukraine, chosen by the general public through the internet-based vote. Ukrainian language, Russian language in Ukraine, languages of Ukraine, and name of Ukraine according to the constitution. The state language of Ukraine is Ukrainian. Russia is widely spoken especially in eastern and southern Ukraine. Most native Ukrainian speakers know Russian as a second language. Russian was the de facto dominant language of the Soviet Union, but Ukrainian also held official status, and in the schools of the Ukrainian SSR learning Ukrainian was mandatory. Effective in August 2012, a new law of regional language is entitled "Any local language spoken by at least a 10% minority be declared officially within the area." With weeks, Russian was declared a regional language of several southern and eastern provinces and eastern oblasts and cities. Russian could then be used in the administrative office work and documents of those places. On 23 February 2014, following the Revolution of Dignity, the Ukrainian Parliament voted to repeal the law of regional language, making Ukrainian the sole state language at all levels.